Well, good afternoon. I am very grateful for the Cardiff Business Club for this invitation. I'd like to thank Lord Raoul Bedell and the Vice Chancellor of the University of South Wales, and to salute my compatriots who are here with the program, what we call Science Without Borders, studying, and very happily so, at the University of South Wales. I want to speak very briefly, general overview of Brazil and relations with the UK and how things are moving. And then, if you are interested, I will be able to take a few questions. I think it's always more dynamic because we reply to specific concerns. Brazil, as you know, is a large country, big in terms of geography, also in terms of population. We have continental Brazil is larger than continental United States. Population is a little over 200 million and growing, but not so fast any longer. We expect to reach a climax of the population of about 225, 230 million, and from there on probably stabilize. So we already have surpassed a rate of growth of the population that some emerging countries are continuing to do. In fact, this is reasonably related to the fact that Brazil has undergone a very lengthy process of urbanization over the past 50 years. And today, our distribution is closely, resembles a European country. We have about 85%, even more, 87% of our people living in urban areas in Brazil. We have been experiencing a lot of success in the economy, a lot of success in social inclusion, and a very important process of strengthening of the democratic institutions of Brazil. And this is a change in the past, not because of change in democracy or change in growth or change in social inclusion, but because Brazil is maturing politically, and each government that is elected incorporates elements from the previous government. So we are today in an election year in Brazil. We're going to have a very heated dispute, as usually elections bring, but no one expects that we're going to have significant changes, no matter what the outcome of the election is, in terms of economic stability, macroeconomic stability, social inclusion, and elements of that nature. As we speak today, Brazil is amongst the 5 or the 6 largest economies in the world in purchasing power parity and also in nominal economy. We have about $2.4 trillion GDP, more or less the same size as the economy of the United Kingdom. But we are a closed economy. Our trade only represents about 20% of our GDP, in contrast to what European countries have in general, which is closer to 40% or 50%, or in some cases even more than that. This, of course, creates some difficulties, but it's also very comforting in cases such as we experience today of, let's say, difficult times on the international scenario. Brazil has grown very significantly over the past few years. We reached a close to 8% rate of growth in 2010. Since then, we have slowed down quite significantly. We grew 2.3% last year. We expect to grow about 2% this year because we're essentially changing the way we're doing business. Over the past many years, the most important achievement of Brazil has been essentially incorporating significant numbers of Brazilians into full citizenship. Brazil is, as most Latin American countries are, a very iniquitous society with income distribution that has to be corrected. If you don't have a more balanced society, you cannot build a balanced country. This is the most important challenge that we face, and we have been doing very well in this respect. Over the past 10 years, we have incorporated close to 40 million, 50 million Brazilians into the middle class. Of course, what is middle class is somewhat a subjective assessment, but I'll give you a number which is very objective. Brazil has 65 million new bank accounts over the past 10 years, without an increase in population that is closely significant to that. And this means that people are really becoming consumers, they are beginning to save, and they are beginning to spend more money in different areas. And this presents enormous opportunities for outside investors including those here in Wales and the United Kingdom, which has been picking up very significantly. Brazil continues to be a very attractive place for foreign direct investment. We usually are amongst the 5 largest recipients of foreign direct investments in the world. Last year we slipped a little, we were 6th, the year before we were 5th, but we're 3rd, I'm sorry. This year it appears to be enormous. The amount of money that is flowing into Brazil has been very significant. In fact, it was a little embarrassing because 1 week ago or 10 days ago, one of the rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, decided to downgrade Brazil. But it had a contrary effect. The amount of money that is flowing to Brazil after that, for coincidental reasons obviously, has picked up significantly. And we expect to have close to 70 or $75 billion of foreign direct investment this year alone in Brazil. All of that points to a society that is undergoing significant changes but needs to have enormous cooperation from abroad in different areas of cooperation. We need resources, technical, human, and financial. We are getting most of them. We need a lot of technology. One of the challenges that Brazil has today is to incorporate technology into production. In fact, we have done that very successfully in agriculture. Brazilian agriculture is probably amongst the most competitive, if not the most competitive in the world, for several reasons. Of course, we have land, water, sun, but especially we have good business model and an old tradition of investing in technology for production in agriculture. The same, unfortunately, does not apply in industry. We have been losing space, relatively speaking, in industry, with a few exceptions, and we need to invest more in technology to bring a correction to this model. This is one of the areas where the cooperation between Brazil and the United Kingdom has increased significantly over the past years. We have major programs of technological relevance, of joint research, and they have significantly augmented over the past few years. There is one special sector of the economy which is receiving very significant attention today because of the new findings offshore, which is oil. Brazil is already a significant oil producer. In fact, we are the largest producers of oil the largest producers now in Latin America. The largest new findings in Latin America are the offshore findings in Brazil. And the UK, which has an enormous experience gained in the North Sea in offshore drilling, has been very active in this respect. This is the area of bilateral cooperation where there has been more investment from the United Kingdom to Brazil. Not just from the big companies, which you well know, BP, Shell, and in the case of Brazil, the biggest one is really British Gas, but also smaller companies which provide services and technological competence for Brazil to be able to pursue fully the potentials that this presents to us. Another area which has been increasing significantly is health services, especially because, as I said, of the growth of the middle class, which has increasing demands in this respect. The Brazilian national health system covers about 190 million Brazilians. It's the 3rd largest health system in the world. As you probably have witnessed a number of protests that have been going on in Brazil since the middle of last year. They relate to increasing demands of better social services, including, of course, health. And this, again, presents very significant opportunities for companies abroad, and many of them in the United Kingdom have been taking this up. Another sector which, again, presents significant challenges and opportunities is education. Because exactly of the new demands of the middle class, better, more, and higher quality education is clearly in demand. That means more opportunities for students going abroad, including, of course, as we have seen in the University of South Wales, but all through the United Kingdom. We have a new program that has been referred to, which is the Science Without Borders, specifically for those students in technical areas. But also it means improving investments in Brazil in universities in secondary education. And this is a big market for private investment. Of course, public responsibility cannot be diminished. It's very present, and Brazil is increasingly investing in that. but it means opening many opportunities for big interested parties from abroad. Many UK universities have established themselves in Brazil, and they are looking into the secondary level education as well. Brazilian relations with the UK have always been good, not to say very good. They're very old, traditional. In fact, the UK, as you all know, is in part responsible for the speeding up of the independence of many of the countries of Latin America. But in spite, and of course the UK was the biggest partner of South America, the biggest partner of Brazil during most of the period before the First World War. By the end of the 19th century, Brazilian external debt was 95% in pounds. This very privileged position, however, began declining significantly after the First World War and very, very abruptly after the Second World War. So as I said, the relations were always good, but not necessarily intense. And they have been picking up significantly over the past 10 years, but especially, to be very frank, over the past 5 years. And the new coalition government has paid a lot of attention to Brazil. The number of ministerial reciprocal visits, especially of British ministers visiting Brazil, has trebled in relation to past experience over the past few years. And this signifies that we are really reaching a new level of intensity in relations. And this means intensity in commercial relations, intensity in investments, intensity in technological research and cooperation in high tech. But it also means a renewed level of intensity in political conversations. We have established a periodic strategic review of overall relations, where the Foreign Secretary goes to Brazil and our Minister of External Relations comes to the United Kingdom every year. So it has been picking up very significantly. Brazil, of course, is also in a very visible spot, as you know, not only because of the elections, which are going to be very important, but because we are holding and hosting the next World Cup. I know that rugby is more important here perhaps than football, but football is the Brazilian sport. We have been very successful and also we have a certain flair which is attractive. And this is probably the best ambassador that we have. I say to my colleagues, no matter how hard we work, football is always ahead of us, presenting a Brazil that at the same time is attractive and competitive. Because being just attractive is not sufficient in football any longer. So we have won 5 World Cups, and we're going to host a wonderful World Cup. Of course, there are some hitches in the process, there always are, but it's going to be a big party, and it's a big visible party. I was saying that people sometimes don't realize how football really is the big global sport. We expect to have 30 billion, that's the right number, 30 billion cumulative viewers for the World Cup. We have 64 games, 64 matches, and the cumulative viewers for this is going to be close to 30 billion, based on previous experiences. We're also going to host the Olympic Games, which is going to be a big event, that in Rio de Janeiro, also very significant. The Olympic Games, perhaps, they are an occasion to transmit more of the country than the World Cup. Why? Because World Cup fanatics just want to see the football. They don't care about the opening ceremony, they want to see the matches. Whereas in the Olympic Games, you have whole preparation to present different aspects of the country, which of course, as you know, London did so well less than 2 years ago with enormous success. We hope, obviously, to build on that success. This has presented new areas for cooperation between Brazil and the United Kingdom. British companies have won many bids already, both for the World Cup and for the Olympic Games, and we are increasing cooperation in this respect. In fact, we began after London won the bid in Singapore about 10 or 11 years ago. The man who was responsible, we picked him up immediately to prepare the Rio de Janeiro bid, and he was, of course, important in setting this up as well. So things have been moving very well. I am very satisfied that during my time in London, the relations have picked up so significantly. The reciprocal relevance of the countries have risen very significantly. And Brazil today presents enormous opportunities. Of course, we are a developing country, and as such, we have enormous challenges ahead of us. But challenges, again, as the Chinese say, are opportunities, including, for instance, challenges in infrastructure. Brazil has enormous requirements in infrastructure, and this is one of the areas that I don't see sufficient interchange between the UK and Brazil, both in terms of, let's say, technical competence of the entrepreneurs in the UK, and also of the City of London, which is the biggest financial center in the world, origin of more than 5% of all foreign direct investment, to arrange specific packages to cover Brazilian necessities in this respect. There is, as I said, enormous cooperation already and investment in energy, and not just in oil. BP and Shell have big investments in renewable energy in Brazil. You might know that Brazil, amongst the large economies of the world, is by far the one with the cleanest metrics. We have 90% of our electric energy is renewable, and 46% of the overall energy metrics is renewable in Brazil, compared to less than 5% here in the UK. So we have many opportunities in different areas, and we are very hopeful that this trend is only going to pick up. And of course, we want to see this more distributed, both in Brazil, not concentrating in Rio, where the investments in oil are, or in São Paulo with the big state of Brazil, but throughout the country, and in the UK. So far, Wales has a less level of participants in this growing cooperation, but there are many opportunities, and Welsh companies are already there in doing investment in different types of areas, and we are sure that this can pick up in the future. So again, I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity of having me here today in the Cardiff Business Club, and I want to leave some room for any issues that you might think would be interesting to pick up individually in this conversation with you. Thank you very much.